The young man remembered the warning about the silver wolf. He stepped uncertainly on the damp ground. The guard was clutching the dim lamp tightly. His hands were shaking from the tension that was frozen in the air. The boy assumed that he was in the imperial palace. The guard remembered the stories of his colleagues. The knight shuddered when he saw the mysterious silhouette. He wanted to know why the man came to this place at night. The guy saw that blood was running down the stranger's hands. The blonde turned around sharply, hearing footsteps. The boy's body was covered in blood. The knight began to back away. The stranger glanced at the man. Soon a piercing cry was heard in the forest, which tore the silence of the night. The moon barely appeared from behind the clouds. The people congratulated His Highness on his birthday. Valentine V was the ruler of the Kalaim Empire. The subject reported that there were many valuable gifts this year. The girl in the black dress headed towards their highnesses. The aristocrat stepped aside and looked at the brunette with disdain. The man was amazed that she showed up to the celebration in mourning clothes. The blonde was shocked that she wore black every day. Adele paid no attention to the shouts. The marquise continued on her way. Covering her face with a fan, the blonde noticed that the box with the gift looked like an urn. The aristocrats could not understand why His Highness invited the girl to the celebration every year. Adele sighed heavily and realized that she herself did not understand the reason. Officially, the girl was invited as a former marquise from an influential family. She was a villain to those around her. Adele was the one who married the elderly marquis to improve her social status. The marquise poisoned her husband. The girl was blinded by the desire to seduce her own stepson. The aristocrats considered Adele an immoral woman. The guest understood that they were judging her without knowing the whole truth. Putting a smile on her face, the girl congratulated His Highness on his birthday. Smiling, Valentine complimented her outfit. Bowing her head, the former marquise said that this color symbolized unity. The widow said she had chosen him in the hope that many nations would unite under the flag of the empire. The girl patched up her only good dress. The aristocrat chose to tell nonsense. She did not want to acknowledge the harsh reality. The girl chose to be an outcast rather than look like a miserable beggar. Adele had long since gotten used to insults. The girl understood that in any case she would look negative to others. She couldn't let those around her hurt her dignity. Smiling, Valentine asked what was inside this creepy box. The girl said that she had prepared the desserts with her own hands. Suddenly, a mocking laugh was heard throughout the room. The man said that it was an extremely pitiful gift compared to the luxurious gifts of other nobles. Adele, forcing a smile on her face, assured that it was her unique recipe. The girl reported that the taste was different from what His Highness was used to. The emperor admitted that the guest had aroused his curiosity. The empress suggested that the taste was so good that one could die without noticing it. The woman suggested that the late marquis loved these cookies. Adele said that unfortunately she began to speak to ease the pain of loss. The former marchioness suggested that if her husband had tried them in life, he would have loved them. The girl realized that her desire to please was excessive. The corners of her lips trembled. The marchioness suggested throwing away her gift. She dreamed of returning home and tearing off the suffocating dress. Bowing, the blonde asked if he could try the cookies. The count apologized for being late. The girl suddenly glanced sideways at the handsome man. Many people discussed the hero of the empire. Weiss made a great contribution to the long war with the neighboring country. The guy had an incredible appearance and remained single. The noblewomen began to discuss the handsome man. The girls knew that Weiss owned many diamond and gold mines. Smiling, the emperor noticed that the assistant was late and had his eye on the gift. Valentine allowed the boy to try the treat. The widow realized that the rumors that he favored the count were true. Bowing, Weiss informed Madame that he would be happy to try her cooking. He took a hesitant bite. Smiling, the handsome man said that these were the best cookies he had ever tasted. The emperor was amazed that the hero loved cookies. Weiss joked that the gentleman thought he had only eaten raw meat. The son of the empire suggested that he should try it too. With excitement, Adele handed the gift to the servant. Valentine took a small bite. The man reported that the taste was too good to eat alone. The outcast was amazed at how the atmosphere changed with just a few words. Weiss extended his hand and asked the girl to become his partner for the evening. The widow looked with admiration at his deep blue eyes and silver hair that shone. The girl said that she would be happy to spend this time with the count. Adele couldn't help but think of the boy whose face was stained with tears. The boy had begged her not to leave. The child had desperately clung to her as his only hope. The aristocrat realized that the count could not be Chris. The young man was with the son of an ordinary miner. The widow understood that if Chris grew up, he would not look the same. During the dance, the handsome man gently placed his hand on the villainess's waist. Smiling, the hero said that he had not seen Adele for a long time. The former marquise could not believe that her childhood friend was standing in front of her. The guy grinned and said that the widow could call him the same as she did in childhood. The young man said that he now danced without stepping on his feet. The handsome man thanked Adele. She taught Chris to dance when he was a child. The handsome man couldn't understand why he needed to learn to dance. The guy said with disappointment that dancing was only for noble gentlemen. The aristocrat asked if he had stepped on her feet on purpose. The girl began to count to the beat of the dance again. The count smiled and asked what Adele was thinking about. The widow realized that her childhood friend had become a completely different person in a decade. The beggar wanted to know what had happened to him over the years. The girl could not dare to ask the hero in a friendly manner what had happened during all this time. She understood that she had abandoned him at that difficult moment. Adele admitted that she hadn't danced for a long time. The handsome man assured her that her friend didn't have to worry and said that he would lead the way. The girl noticed that her friend had not changed at all over the years. Weiss was still making the same movements. The former Marchioness found this quite funny. For the first time in a long time, she was able to laugh. Adele sat in her modest home. The wood in the fireplace crackled, giving the place at least some coziness. The girl sighed heavily and said the name of her old friend. Someone asked why she sighed as if the world had collapsed. Adele asked when her friend had managed to arrive. The girl admitted that she hadn't even noticed Mia entering. The Baroness explained that she had screamed several times. The friend asked the widow what she was thinking about. The hostess suggested that Mia was very cold. The widow offered to pour hot tea. The girl asked the widow to sit down. The Baroness asked her friend how the banquet had gone. She asked how Sira had behaved. The beggar assured that this time there were no incidents. Smiling, the former aristocrat said that everyone tried the cookies. Mia admitted that she was happy for her friend. The Baroness clarified what the problem was. The friend was used to Adele always acting strangely after the banquet. Maya was sure that something had changed this time. She noticed that the widow did not talk incessantly. The Baroness noticed that Adele was sitting on the sofa and sighing heavily. The girl assumed that she had fallen in love. The widow recoiled sharply. The former Marchioness asked what kind of nonsense her friend was talking about. Mia realized that she had truly fallen in love. The Baroness assumed that she really liked Christine Weiss. The girl was amazed that she knew about the Count. Mia heard that he came to the banquet blinding everyone with his beauty. The Baroness asked her friend to forget about it. She told the widow that he would soon become crown prince. The aristocrat couldn't believe that her childhood friend had married April. Mia told her that the couple would soon be engaged. The princess was too young. The king needed a worthy son-in-law to strengthen his position. The Council of Elders of the Kalaim Empire consisted of 5 influential families. Their authority was higher than that of the emperor himself. The empress was a commoner in the past. Usually the ruler was chosen from the families of the council. The woman's strength was not enough to rule the Council of Elders. The princess was still a child. The elders needed a young nobleman who was not connected to the council. Adele clutched the hem of her dress tightly. Her hands shook. The girl was sincerely glad that Chris would soon become the crown prince. The widow's heart was torn apart by silent pain. Hope faded from her deep eyes. A friend called out to Adele. The Baroness noticed that she suddenly turned pale. Smiling, the beggar assured that everything was fine. The girl abruptly stood up from the sofa. The widow decided to cook something. She decided to make more to share with her neighbors. Tanya suddenly burst into the hut. In a trembling voice, she reported to the lady that she had come to visit. The former marquise asked in surprise who the uninvited guest was. The maid tried to catch her breath. She reported that she saw a large carriage. Tanya noticed that people from the Oswald family were approaching them. The girl assumed that they had come to avenge the marquis. Everyone immediately became wary. With a grin, the widow asked her friends not to get upset. Adele said that she would offer the uninvited guests tea and add a little poison to it. The Baroness assumed that her friend was joking. The maid realized that she was taking advantage of her reputation as a poisoner. The girls looked closely at the carriage that had pulled up. The aristocrat said that she had seen this coat of arms for the first time. The Baroness looked at the attractive blonde man in surprise. The guy was clutching a luxurious bouquet of flowers in his hands. Adele's heart fluttered in her chest. She could not understand why the Count had come to her. The girl tightly clutched the luxurious bouquet of flowers to herself. The former marquise was very nervous because her friend had come to her so suddenly. Chris asked why she had disappeared. The Count reminded him that she had not said a word to him or said goodbye. Adele was afraid to tell him, lest her friend notice the thrill he caused in her heart. She couldn't allow herself to reveal it. The girl held the bouquet to herself with trembling hands. The widow said that she had originally intended to give the gift to His Highness. Adele said that she left because he had to greet people. With a heavy sigh, her friend said that she was very sorry. The handsome man snorted that she had repeatedly run away alone. The Count asked if she wanted to tell him something. Adele asked how his injured leg was. The guest assured that the wound had already healed. The girl felt relieved. The friend asked how she had lived all this time. The hero reported that it was hard to tell anything else from her appearance. The widow put a luxurious bouquet in a vase. She had not been given so many flowers for a long time. Weiss found this strange. The Count was sure that it would have been better for his friend to throw away the flowers. The aristocrat glanced around the room. He promised to bring something necessary for the house on his next visit. With excitement in her voice, the Marquise asked if her friend would come again. The guy said he could come to visit her. The aristocrat said that people would notice him because the city was small. The Count said that it was not shameful for a widow to meet a man. Adele assured that he was like a younger brother to her. The handsome man hovered over her and said that there was no problem then. The widow was very embarrassed and took a step back. The hero helped her sit down on the sofa. The friend asked why she was so surprised. She noticed that Chris suddenly approached her. Handsome assumed that she had some strange thoughts. The widow assured that this was not the case. The guy asked not to look away. The friend explained that it was very upsetting to him because they were meeting for the first time in a long time. He gently took Adele by the chin. The girl saw her reflection in his deep lake-like eyes. She tried to change the atmosphere and grabbed his cheeks. The widow asked her best friend to stop fooling around. The girl assured him that the handsome guy was like a real brother to her. The widow explained that in her eyes he was still the same boy who followed her around like a puppy. She remembered how Chris went crazy over apple pie. The guy reminded her of who his first kiss was. The widow got very nervous and blushed. Adele pushed her friend away sharply and assured him that it didn't look like a kiss. The girl reminded him that he had fallen into the water, and she had performed artificial respiration. The handsome man reminded her that it didn't end with artificial respiration. The girlfriend explained that she kissed him out of pure delight. Adele assured that it was not a serious kiss. The hero asked whether she kissed when she was happy. The girl assured him that it was not a kiss. The guy noticed that she blushed like a tomato. The widow assured him that his eyes were deceiving him. The Duke suddenly burst into a shout. He was very irritated by Adele's stubbornness. The beggar woman laughed and realized that she hadn't heard that for a long time. Her friend said that he often called her that as a child. The former Marquise noticed that his facial expression did not change one bit during his anger. He reported that her straightforward nature had not changed either. The girl threw some wood into the fireplace. Adele admitted that she was also incredibly happy to see her friend. The tone of her voice changed abruptly. The widow asked him not to come to her house anymore. The girl asked Chris not to contact her. The Count assumed that it was due to her bad reputation. Adele reminded him that she had poisoned her own husband. The hero assured him that it did not bother him at all. The friend suggested that it was a false accusation. The guy said that her reputation could not affect him in any way. With excitement, Adele asked how her friend became a nobleman. The aristocrat shared that he brought glory to the emperor. The handsome man was surprised that she had not offered anything to her guests. The Count reminded her that a decade had passed since their last meeting. Adele stepped forward abruptly and said that she had nothing to offer. The girl explained that she was not expecting guests. The hero assured that he was omnivorous. Chris said that he would soon die of hunger. The former Marchioness asked how such an important person could not eat. Adele began to touch her hair out of excitement. The girl asked her friend to wait a little. Smiling, the handsome man said that she was the only one he could rely on. The widow, greatly embarrassed, said that there had been no kiss that day. The Duke ran his hand down his leg. He remembered how he had suddenly seen the portrait of his girlfriend. The guy was asked to establish relations with the Marquise. Valentine raised his glass and said that the late Marquise had a document with his signature. The Emperor assumed that his request would be easy to fulfill. The man raised his glass of red wine. Weiss assumed that there was something important in that document. Smiling, the subject promised to get closer to the girl and find out everything. The Emperor assured that it was enough to befriend the widow. Valentine asked not to disappoint April. The aristocrat said that Weiss had practically become part of his family. Smiling, the handsome man assured that he was loyal only to His Highness. The Marquise opened the door and turned to her friend. Adele noticed that he had fallen asleep on the sofa. The girl realized that the soup would be tasteless if it got cold. The widow realized that Chris looked like himself as a child when he slept. She carefully put the soup on the table and covered the boy's knees with a warm blanket. The events moved forward to a decade on Lake Garden. The girl was walking along a snowy road. She realized that she was late because she was helping her mother at the store. Adele hoped that his friend's break was not over yet. The young lady understood that he was angry when he found out that she was walking on a frozen lake. The little girl could not leave her friend hungry. She reassured herself that it was cold enough outside and everything would be fine. The ice suddenly cracked under her feet. Adele fell under the water and began to quickly go to the bottom. The girl realized that her friend was waiting for her. The air began to slowly leave her lungs. The icy water burned her airways. The wet dress treacherously pulled her to the bottom. The young lady thought she heard Chris's voice. Adele woke up. The sunlight blinded her for a few moments. The girl's body was shaking from the cold. Her heart sank when she saw her friend lying unconscious in the cold snow. She ran up to the soaking wet hero. The girl begged him to wake up. Burning tears rolled down his face. The young lady begged him not to die. The girl began to perform artificial respiration. The guy asked why Adele was crying. She rushed to her friend and hugged him tightly. The worker assured him that he was completely fine. She caught the guy in a lie. Notice his pale lips. Having paid, the girl said that she felt like she was freezing. The commoner gently took her chin and kissed her passionately. The widow remembered that day at the lake a decade ago. The beggar realized why her friend was so scared. She was looking for her beloved's gaze. Adele assumed that he had left without saying a word. The former Marchioness was clutching the still warm blanket tightly. The girl was disappointed that he hadn't woken her up or said goodbye. She realized that she had no right to say such things. Adele understood that Chris should be treated as a stranger. Zimmer asked the guy how the widow had reacted to the flowers. The commander assured him that flowers were the best gift for women. The hero irritatedly assured that he would no longer trust his assistant to choose a gift. Zimmer asked why the gentleman had left so early. He was sure that the count had had a wonderful time. The guy, embarrassed, reminded them that the mating season had already begun. His face turned red. The commander noticed the strange relationship between Mr. and Lady Oswald. It seemed to the guy that they were good acquaintances. Weiss said with irritation that she considered them brother and sister. The heroes explained that because of this girl, he became a beast. Licking his lips, the handsome man said that he found it difficult to resist her scent. Weiss assumed it was because of the weather. Zimmer did not expect that the woman would be important to the commander. The commander remembered how he reported to the gentleman about Milady. The guy assured that due to the lack of evidence, the Oswald family limited itself to expulsion. The count found it strange that the Oswald family left the killer without evidence. The brown-haired man reported on the rumors that were circulating about the girl and her stepson. The gentleman asked to stop. The handsome man ordered the carriage to be prepared. The guy said that it was time for them to go to the outskirts of Greenhill. The commander decided to prepare a gift. Zimmer realized that the count felt something for the girl. The subordinate promised to continue studying the biography of Milady. The aristocrat assured that it was not worth doing. The guy explained that if she had been set up, she would have asked for help. The handsome guy assumed that his girlfriend felt guilty. Zimmer was amazed that he was so calm about the fact that the person he liked was set up. Weiss assured that not every girl he hugged was to his liking. The aristocrat assured that he was not so magnanimous as to love a traitor. The girl rushed to her friend. The maid asked if the night guest had left. The Baroness assumed that the Count had proposed to his friend. Adele was very embarrassed and assured that it was not so. Tanya was sure that the aristocrat was crazy about her friend. The workers could not believe that the hero actually came to the mistress's home. The former Marquise was amazed that she knew Count Weiss. The girl said that he was a war hero and commander of the White Ghosts. Adele was very surprised to realize that her friend was the commander of the most famous knightly order. The friend clarified what the Count had told the girl. The Baroness was sure that the night visitor had proposed to the widow or asked her out on a date. Adele didn't know how to explain her feelings for the guy. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. People said that they had arrived from the Imperial Palace. The man reported that Valentine really liked the cookies. He said that the widow would supply desserts to the palace on a regular basis. The servant handed over the contract. The former Marquise was amazed that she could deliver dessert once a month in any quantity. The girl realized that the nobles would follow the example of the Imperial Palace. A radiant smile appeared on Adele's face. The widow realized that she no longer had to worry about how to make a living. That same day, aristocrats came to the girl. The blonde said that she heard that the imperial palace ordered the girls desserts. The lady said she wanted to place an order too. A smile appeared on the widow's face. Adele was surprised at how quickly the rumors spread. The girls were delighted with the taste of the cookies. The guests praised the pastries, which were crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. Adele didn't know how to behave when the nobles treated her in a friendly manner. The blonde asked what the widow's relationship with the count was. The noblewoman reported that their couple looked great at the banquet. The girls reported that they heard that the count had come to this place. The aristocrats reported that the guy would soon be appointed captain of the royal guard. The blonde asked if she could arrange an audience with the emperor. The widow realized that the girls were only pretending to come for the cookies. The girl realized what their real purpose was. She realized that the rumors were spreading like wildfire. The former marchioness began to worry about Chris's reputation. Adele understood that everyone knew about the marriage of the count and the princess. Breaking into a scream, the girl said that she and the count did not have such a relationship. She began to get very nervous. The widow told her that the count was her younger brother. Adele couldn't help but remember that kiss on the lake. The girl said that since childhood they had been one family. The former marchioness assured that he was her younger brother. She explained that after her mother's death she was forced to go to Count Grill's house. The girl explained that they had lost contact. The widow said that by chance they crossed paths at a banquet. Adele assured that the handsome man only came in to say hello. The girls felt that the atmosphere that reigned at that moment was not so simple. Hans asked if the girl really had not been in such a relationship with the count. A distant relative handed over an invitation to a New Year's party. The girl said that it would be great if she came. Adele thanked the guest for the invitation. She said that her presence would only embarrass the guests. A friend advised the widow to take these invitations. The Baroness explained that this was an excellent chance to return to high society. Hans suggested that her relative take her friend with her. She was sure that Lady Oswald would be calmer in the presence of a loved one. The widow thanked him for the offer. The girl explained that she would hardly find the time. Mia begged the girl with her eyes to agree. Looking away, the former marquise accepted the invitation. Above the small house the stars shone, giving the place a little dim, cold light. Tanya said that it was a great pity. The maid hoped that everything would work out between the mistress and the count. Adele carefully rearranged the flowers. She realized that after ordering dessert to the palace, she would no longer have to worry about money. The girl wanted to make Oswald take back his words. The widow asked Tanya to stop calling her milady. The maid reminded her that she had not had a proper married life. She recalled the times when she called the girl madam. The commoner could not understand why Adele did not ask her brother for help. The maid was sure that otherwise nothing would have happened in the Oswald's house. From the moral tension, the marquise tightly squeezed the stem of the rose. One of the thorns dug into her finger. Scarlet blood immediately gushed from the small wound. Tanya asked for forgiveness with tears in her eyes. She realized that she shouldn't have brought up the topic. The lady assured her that everything was fine. The girl explained that she had thought about it for a few moments. Looking at her hand, Adele assured that she had forgotten everything that happened in the Oswald's house. The events are transferred to the estate of Miss Hans. The carriage, creaking its wheels, drove up to the entrance to the estate. The Baroness looked at the luxurious mansion with admiration. The guy rudely asked why they came to this place. The widow handed over their invitations. The girl asked irritably what other reasons they could have had. The butler suggested that she follow him. Adele was shocked by the servant's reaction. A painful voice was heard from behind. The blonde said that she had not seen her mother for a long time. Sira was in luxurious clothes and gold sparkled on her hands. The lady informed that the dress code for the event was fur. Adele realized why the servant had reacted so strangely. Waving her hand, the lady explained that she was worried that they would feel burdened and not come. Hans offered to lend the guests outfits for the dress code she did not wear. The widow realized that the girl was on Sira's side. Adele would have preferred to leave without dealing with it. The beggar woman announced that it was time for them to go. Mia tugged at the sleeve of her friend's modest dress. The Baroness explained that if they left, it would mean admitting defeat. The girl reminded them that they had already arrived. A friend advised Adele to enjoy this party. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the face of the former marchioness. She realized that she couldn't just give up. Smiling, Adele thanked him for the offer. The widow asked him to take care of Madame Bonita. Smiling, the Baroness asked what kind of jewelry the girl had. The guest said that she would be curious to see the countless wealth. The girl asked her relative to make sure that her friend had a good time. Adele assumed that it was Sira's doing. Smiling, her daughter said that she had no idea what she was talking about. The girl said that blaming others was a bad habit. The lady asked whether the count was the widow's brother. Adele asked why her daughter was asking about this. Sira asked if her mother could have introduced her to an aristocrat. The widow was a little taken aback by such words. She asked her daughter why she needed this. The lady suggested that her mother wanted to clear her name from the murder charges. The former Marchioness asked if she could have changed anything. Saira assured that she would clear the girl's name, and the count would become part of an influential family. The girl noted that he would be able to join the Council of Elders. In response, the exiled woman only laughed. The former marquise asked whether her daughter understood why the emperor trusted the count so much. The girl's face suddenly twisted. She could not believe that His Highness considered the count as a son-in-law. The widow said that she did not know what was in the head of such a noble man. The girl asked what she would do in the place of the Lord. The young lady's body trembled and she clutched her fan tightly in her hands. Mom advised her to go with it or not to waste her energy on unattainable things. The blonde suspected that her mother also had feelings for Weiss. The marquise's daughter reported that she saw them dancing at the ball. Saira assumed that the face belonged to the one who was looking at her brother. Smiling, the mother assumed that the handsome man really liked the young lady. The widow noticed that she was too interested in her. The exile was sure that she was thirsty for her mother's attention. Adele advised her daughter to be more mature. She longed for her mother to make sure that she was with the count. The lady swore that she would achieve this. Smiling, the guest recommended trying it in Sayre. The girl often used her influence over noble ladies. Saira often expelled the ill-wisher from society. One such example was Adele. The ladies were afraid that the same fate would befall them and kept their distance from her. The widow was repeatedly subjected to open attacks. Adele realized that the attitude of the aristocracy towards her had completely changed. The girls discussed how close she was to the count. Adele was prepared for all conversations to be about the guy. Soon the Baroness approached her friend. She asked whether the outfit suited her. The widow assured her that she looked irresistible. Mia suggested having some fun. The friends drank several glasses of wine. A rough hand grabbed Adele's face. The brown-haired man looked straight into her eyes, not letting her go. The guy noticed that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The girl ran out of the banquet hall in excitement. The guest could not understand what was happening to her. Adele understood that she could not get drunk from one glass. The former Marchioness realized that she had to leave as soon as possible. The widow noticed that after the servants had given her 2 glasses, she did not show up again. Adele assumed that the worker had slipped something into her drink. The guy approached the former Marchioness and asked if she needed help. The girl assured that she was just about to leave. Smiling, the brown-haired man said that he knew that she needed help. The guy said that this was their first meeting since the day he was rejected. April greeted Miss Sira. The princess asked where Lady Oswald was. The girl knew that she was very close to her fiancé. She said that she would very much like to see the widow. Hans covered her grin with her fan. The lady reported that Adele had been seen in the hallway a few moments ago. Sira reported that she should take her mother. April suggested going with her. With a smile, the Marchioness led the girl into that ill-fated corridor. The noble lady was startled by the groans coming from the room. Hans assured her with a trembling voice that the widow had entered. With tears in her eyes, the girl suggested to Mrs. Sear that they meet Adele another time. Smiling, she said that it was the Oswald family's business. The girl wanted to find out what was going on. With a malicious grin, the Marquise opened the door. The guests were horrified by the sight that opened up. The Count sat naked, tied to a chair. Ethan tried to say something. There was a cloth gag in the aristocrat's mouth. The widow lay on the floor and heard only someone distantly pronouncing her name. A friend gently touched Adele's forehead. The widow anxiously asked what Chris was doing in this place. She tried to get up quickly. The Count put his hand on her face. Weiss advised the girl to lie down a little longer. The aristocrat was afraid that she would lose consciousness again. The guy handed her a glass of water. The handsome man asked Adele what had happened. The widow admitted that she had had a little to drink. The former Marchioness assumed that it was a mistake. She didn't want to say that she had been drugged without proof. Adele only vaguely remembered the Count trying to drag her into the room. Smiling, her friend suggested that Chris had saved her from Ethan. Smiling, the aristocrat doubted that she should thank him. The guy explained that his girlfriend was going to cut the rapist's throat. Weiss assumed that he saved the guy. Adele abruptly pulled her knife out of her friend's hands. The former Marchioness explained that she carried it for self-defense. The girl felt awkward that her friend had caught her with a knife. She carefully returned the weapon to the holder on her leg. The Count said that it was a suitable accessory for a villainess. The handsome man called out to his girlfriend and asked her not to move. Chris suddenly approached her. The guy took her hand and began to bandage it. He told her not to mindlessly wave the knife. The Duke warned her that she could seriously harm herself. The girl lowered her eyes and thanked him. Adele was sure that without her friend she would have a hard time. Smiling, Chris told how she fiercely waved the knife. The aristocrat shared that he had to sneak up on the Count from behind and knock him out. The guy said that it was difficult for him to undress and tie the rapist to a chair. The Count suggested that it would be worth leaving the rapist some underwear. Soon Adele laughed. The widow asked how her friend had ended up in this estate. The girl assumed that Madame Hans had invited him. The Duke said that he had accompanied the princess. The handsome man diligently continued bandaging her hand. The widow couldn't understand why these thoughts were so unpleasant. The girl remembered her daughter's mockery. She jerked her hand away. The former Marchioness suggested that it was time for him to go. The handsome man gently pressed his finger to her lips. Weiss explained that several people had already started looking for his girlfriend. The guy said that they should not be seen together. He suggested escaping through the window. The hero jumped deftly onto the windowsill. The friend quickly extended his hand to Adele. The aristocrat explained that it was much safer. The girl looked at the beautiful sky which was strewn with thousands of stars. The widow felt special. The former Marchioness reminded her that they were on the first floor. The girl smiled and climbed onto the windowsill. Soon the guest found herself on the ground. Adele assured that she was fine. The girl told her friend that she had decided to send dessert for the royal family. Chris coldly praised her. The former Marquise asked if he had asked for it. The handsome man explained that he was not so idle as to talk to the emperor about such things. The hero smiled and assumed that his praise had influenced the emperor's decision. The cold light of distant stars played on his platinum hair. The widow admitted that it was true. The girls did not want to admit it. She realized that thanks to his friend's words, the emperor decided to try the dessert. Adele smiled radiantly and thanked him. The aristocrat said that words were not enough for him. The guy said that he wanted to try some apple pie. Chris reminded the girl how her mother used to make this dessert when she was a child. She tucked her hair behind her ears with an awkward smile. The Marchioness agreed that it was indeed very tasty. The girl assured that she could learn more recipes. Adele couldn't help but remember that terrible day. The Count had told her that the taste didn't have to be the same. Weiss explained that his friend had to make him a pie. Adele agreed to prepare the dish. She wanted her friend to give her the address. The guy asked his girlfriend to invite him to her place. The widow looked away. She explained that the princess might have misunderstood. The Count recalled how the girl said that he was like a blood brother to her. Adele couldn't understand why it was so difficult to look into those cold sky-blue eyes. Smiling, the guy assured her that he would visit her. The handsome man reminded her that they were like brother and sister. Chris gently took her chin in his hand. The friend warned that the more she pushed away, the worse he would behave. The aristocrat turned abruptly and left. Adele was left completely alone. The Baroness asked her friend where she had been. The widow said that she felt herself getting drunk and decided to take a walk. Mia said that the princess had already arrived. The girl suggested leaving a good impression before she left. The beggar's gaze was fixed on Chris and the princess. The guy whispered something in the bride's ear. April laughed. Adele realized that the princess had genuine feelings for the guy. Her ladyship turned to Miss Oswald. The princess explained that she was about to leave. The widow bowed and greeted the princess. The girl apologized for the long walk. April said that she was still pleased to meet them. The princess took Adele by the hand. The girl invited the former marquise into the palace. She hoped to chat longer. April asked her to tell her more about her friend. Smiling, the widow accepted the invitation. The aristocrats began to discuss the royal wedding. The girl told her mother that she was very lucky that day. Adele told her daughter that everything was the other way around. The lady pretended not to understand what she was talking about. The widow warned that next time her daughter would be in her place. The beggar advised Sarah to think about the consequences. The girl asked to convey her greetings to Hans. Adele assured that it was an unforgettable reception. The girl suggested that Mia leave. The Baroness was amazed that the Duke proposed to his friend before the Marquise's funeral. The widow reported that nothing had happened. She shared that she woke up when she was in the living room. Her friend admitted that she also felt dizzy. The Baroness told how she fell during the dance. The girl was sure that it was the work of Hans and Sira. The aristocrat lost her temper and promised to take revenge. The events are transferred to the celebration. One of the aristocrats informed the young lady about the caramel in her hair. The girl realized that the sweetness was very tangled. Sira assumed that someone had done it on purpose. The lady realized that they would have to be cut off. April reported that the Count had done a wonderful job. The guy assured that it had brought him joy. Smiling, the princess said that Lady Oswald was much more beautiful. The girl admitted that she was pleasantly surprised. April assumed that she would easily touch the Count's heart. The bride asked the handsome man if everything was okay. Weiss assured that she was beautiful too. The princess realized that the guy also had feelings for her. April clarified that he could kiss her. For a few moments there was an oppressive silence in the air. The beauty realized that this was not going to happen. She asked for forgiveness and said that it was time for her to go. The hero grabbed her hand and kissed it tenderly. Weiss wished her pleasant dreams. The sun's rays were streaming through the windows. Adele took a small bite of the fragrant pie. She realized with disappointment that the taste was nothing like what her mother cooked. The girl dreamed of giving Chris a chance to experience that taste again. When Adele was little, her mother owned a small bakery. This place was filled with fragrant pastries every day. The little girl always had fresh food on the table. One day Adele noticed a boy. The blond man stood in the crowd. His gaze was fixed on the floor. The boy had a very thin build. Adele realized that the miner's son was standing in their bakery. Chris was abandoned by his mother. The little girl looked at her basket, which was filled with fragrant pastries. She handed the boy a pie. The girl was enchanted by his cold eyes. Adele admitted that she took it for herself. She quickly became attached to this boy. The miner's son came to them every day. The brunette taught him a lot, to read, write, dance. Chris ran after her like a little tail and studied hard. The girl's mother took great care of the baby. Little by little, Chris became part of their family. The baby was infinitely happy because she had a mother and a little brother, Chris. One cold evening, she was informed that her mother had been torn apart by animals. Soon the endless stream of thoughts and memories was interrupted by the creaking of the door. The friends greeted Adele. The Baroness was amazed by the large number of pies. The maid said that the girl should ask for help. Embarrassed, the widow said that she wanted to try baking an apple pie. She offered the guests to try it. Mia was delighted with the taste. The Baroness said that her brother would come soon. Mark was heading to the Emperor. The girl explained that she had suggested that he drop in on the way. The friend apologized for not telling him about it earlier. Winking, Mia reminded him that quite a lot of time had passed since his divorce. Her friend hoped that Adele would have a good relationship with the Count. The girl understood that she could do nothing about their relationship. The Baroness explained that she needed to find someone so that Ethan would not bother her. Adele knew that Mark had always been interested in her. The girl assured him that her brother would just drop by to say hello. With glowing eyes, the Baroness offered to put makeup on her friend. The widow assured her that she was fine as is. Tanya promised to do a beautiful hairdo. The Baroness joyfully opened the door for her brother. Smiling, Mark noticed that she was just as restless. The guy assumed that he already knew Adele. The sister said that she would introduce the girl to the Baron. Mia enthusiastically introduced her friend to her brother. Placing his hand on his chest, the guest greeted Milady. He hoped that he had not disturbed the girl with his sudden visit. Adele reported that she had just baked fresh pies. The Baroness reported that she had forgotten to bring the buckle that Tanya had asked for. The girl suggested that her friend go together. Mia assured that they would return soon. There was uncertainty in Adele's voice. The widow invited the guest to sit down. He said that everything had been quiet in the Oswalds' house lately. The beggar woman was astonished by this statement. The Baron admitted that he was glad to see the girl again. Mark noticed her beautiful appearance. The former Marchioness assumed that it was because of the makeup. The guy smiled and assumed that his sister had made up the beauty in this way. Adele assumed that he had a keen eye for this. The guest explained that this only applied to those he liked. The girl tried to change the subject. She didn't know what to say in such situations. Adele asked if the Baron liked the pie. The beggar woman offered to pack a piece for Jade. Mark felt like the girl wanted to send him away. The widow said she felt awkward talking to him alone. Smiling, the guy admitted that he felt the same way. He promised to come when he had some free time. Mark assured her that he would like to see her more often. Adele said that he could come to visit. The girl heard a noise outside the window. She saw a carriage. The widow said she would open it. Adele was a little taken aback that her friend had arrived without saying anything. The Count asked if he had disturbed her. The friend realized that there was no point in saying anything in this situation. Mark smiled and introduced himself and extended his hand. The guy assured that he was very glad to meet him. The Baron had heard a lot about the hero. Weiss chuckled that he couldn't say the same. The handsome man reminded that Adele was a former marquise. The guy suggested that Mark meet people of his status. The guest said that it was time for him to go. The guy kissed the lady's hand tenderly. He assured that he was very happy about this meeting. When Mark left the room, there was an oppressive silence. The Count handed his friend an invitation. Adele was amazed that he had come such a long way to give it to her. Looking down, the guest explained that he wanted to make sure that she had not forgotten her promise. The guy noticed that she had prepared a pie for his visit. The handsome man noticed her bright makeup and a flower in her hair. Chris gently took a lock of her silky hair. He assumed that his friend wanted to marry this man again. Abruptly removing her friend's hand, Adele assured him that it was none of his business. The widow said that it was her personal business. The Count recalled that she had said that he was like a brother to her. The handsome man explained that this gave him the right to speak out. Adele asked him not to make excuses. The girl assumed that her friend needed a reason to criticize her. Weiss was glad that his sister understood this. The former Marchioness hoped for a quiet life. She wanted to avoid unnecessary attention. After the appearance of a friend, Adele's life began to turn into chaos. The widow realized that the aristocrats might find this a reason to gossip. The girl hated whispers behind her back and accusations. The former Marchioness said that the second marriage was not subject to criticism. Chris asked his friend in surprise whether she had thought about marrying the Baron. The widow turned away and said she was tired of being alone. The Count said that marriage was not a solution. The guy assumed that his friend had already forgotten about what had happened. Smiling, Adele assured him that she just needed support. The widow realized that Mark was an excellent choice. She knew that the Baron would be a reliable and devoted husband. The girl went through terrible rumors in order to survive. All this time, the widow was in oppressive loneliness. Adele admitted that she thought about her friend from time to time. The Count assured her that he could be her support. The handsome man said that he wanted to become that person. The girl was a little taken aback by such a proposal. For a few moments, a spark of hope flashed in her eyes. With her eyes downcast, Adele recommended that he focus on marrying the princess. The former Marchioness asked her friend not to come to her house without an invitation. With pain in her heart, she watched as the boy headed for the gate. Adele was sure that this was enough. The girl planned to improve her relationship with Mark and distance herself from her friend. The widow was sure that after this, the attention to her person would decrease. Adele hoped that the Count could become an imperial capture. These thoughts brought tears to her eyes. She sat down, curled up into a ball. The girl reminded herself that she had lived without Chris until now. The widow decided to pull herself together. Adele stood up abruptly and decided to focus on work. She understood that she had to deliver a lot of desserts to the imperial palace. The aristocrat asked Tanya to bring flour from the basement. The girl realized that her friend had left. Adele knew that she would have to go down to the basement. She decided to wash off her makeup first. The widow looked into the semi-darkness with a shudder in her heart. A wave of memories overwhelmed her mind. The woman said that from now on Adele's place was in the basement. The maid said that the girl would be given 1 candle a week. The worker said that the mistress would finish eating what the Marquis had left behind. Soon Adele came out of her stupor. Her hands were shaking violently. The girl realized that she needed to leave this place as quickly as possible. She heard the ringing of bells. The widow reassured herself that a wild animal was stuck in the fence. It seemed to her that the sound was coming from all sides. Someone asked Adele not to hide and to come out. The girl's heart sank when she realized that Count Ethan had come for her. The madman was furiously knocking on the door. He warned that he would enter if his beloved did not open. The widow quickly locked the door. He warned that his hot-tempered friends would tear the door off its hinges. Adele asked if the situation at the Count's party had taught her anything. Soon the madman opened the door. The girl realized that she had nowhere to run. The horses walked slowly along the forest path. The cold starlight picked out the silhouettes of tall pine trees from the semi-darkness. The light of the dim candles played on his platinum hair. The commander asked the Count if he had listened to him. The guy already knew the answer. Zimmer noticed that Weiss had been depressed since he returned from Milady's house. He assumed that the gentleman had quarreled with the Marquise. The Count thought about simply getting rid of the guy. The commander asked the gentleman what he was talking about. With a trembling voice, he asked who the hero had in mind. Handsome asked about the report on Count Ethan. Zimmer said that he was just about to report. The guy reported that the pervert began to frequently visit Haveli's tavern. The commander assumed that the Count was plotting something with the bandits. Handsome assumed that he had already made his move. Ethan burst into the basement with a crazy look. The pervert said that he owed something. The uninvited guest assured that the time of reckoning had come. Adele ordered the guy not to come closer. She assured him that if he raised his hand to her, her brother would not turn a blind eye to it. The Marquise assured that Weiss would be here any minute. The bandits hissed that the Count had not mentioned it. The big man asked what connected Adele and the Count. Breaking into a scream, the guy ordered the victim to shut up. Ethan assured them that they would not fall for this trick. He reminded them that the girl had humiliated him in front of the princess. The madman said that it was time for his beloved to pay for this. The aristocrat ordered the bandits to hurry. One of the criminals splashed a pungent-smelling liquid onto the floor with a flick of his wrist. Adele smelled oil. She realized that the uninvited guests wanted to burn the house to the ground. The Marquise lifted up the hem of her dress and pulled out her knife. The girl ordered them to stop immediately. Adele slapped the pervert's hand with rage. The cover flew off. She tried to stop shaking. The Marquise assured that she would kill anyone who dared to approach her. The girl realized that the forces were not equal. Adele held the blade tightly in her trembling hands. She planned to cut one and run away. The Marquise hoped that she would have time to call for help. The woman noticed that Adele was shaking like an aspen leaf. The bandit fell helplessly to the floor. Count Weiss noticed that the bandits were still as cowardly as ever. He noticed that Ethan had called 2 more with him. The handsome man grinned and assumed that he had made himself clear that day. The hero was clutching his sword tightly in his hands. Chris guessed he had been too polite that day. The intruder's heart sank. Ethan realized that the voice belonged to Count Weiss. With a smirk, the handsome man pinned the pervert against the wall. Chris held her friend tightly to protect her. The guy warned that next time he wouldn't stop there. With a trembling voice, the uninvited guest assured that he only wanted to scare her. The hero thrust the sword into the wooden floor with ease. Perversion collapsed and began to tremble with fear. Ethan begged for mercy. Hot tears flowed down his face. Chris asked to address his prayers to the Marquise. The Count fell to his knees and began to beg the girl for forgiveness. He begged for mercy on his unfortunate soul. Trembling all over, Adele asked not to be seen. Having picked up the bandit from the floor, Ethan promised that this would not happen again. The Count generously let the criminals go. Chris was amazed that she let Ethan go unpunished. The guy thought it was pretty boring. A friend saw Adele kneeling with the weapon dropped from her hands. He called out to her. The Marquise admitted that her legs could not support her. She asked her friend to help her get to the room. The hero easily picked her up in his arms. The girl assured that she only asked for help and not to carry her in her arms. Weiss said that he felt much more comfortable that way. He sarcastically said that he could have let go. Marquise's heart was breaking from pushing Chris away and relying on him again. The girl felt her heart jumping out of her chest. Adele realized that she felt safe with her friend. She promised herself that this would be the last time. The friend said he would put her on the bed. The guy carefully lowered her onto the soft mattress. The girl couldn't tear her eyes away from the handsome man's pale lips. Chris leaned on his hand, hanging over her. The Marquise asked in a trembling voice what he was doing. A slight blush appeared on her face. The handsome man said that her wound had opened. Chris noticed that she had turned red. A friend asked not to bother her head with such nonsense. The guy advised Adele to go to bed. The girl doubted that she would be able to sleep after what had happened. The Count suggested drinking some wine. The friend doubted that it was a good idea. She explained that one should not drink on an empty stomach. Chris offered something to eat. The girl assured that she wouldn't swallow even a piece. With an awkward smile, she apologized for being so difficult with her. Rolling his eyes, the handsome man admitted that he was glad she understood that. The guy turned around and went somewhere. With hope in her eyes, Adele asked if he would leave. Smiling, the hero promised to return soon. A friend said that he managed to clean up a bit. He said that the only food he found was an apple pie. Chris advised his friend to eat a little. The Duke noticed her unhealthy thinness. Adele was amazed that everything looked so bad. The guy shoved a piece of pie into her mouth. He was afraid that the impact could break her fragile bones. Chris grinned and said that if she was grateful, she could fulfill one of his requests. The girl promised to do everything in her power. Smiling, the handsome man asked to stay in her house for a while. The widow slammed her hand on the table and asked again. He reminded that he would soon lead the Imperial Guard. The guy explained that he could not return to his estate. The Duke said he needed to stay close to the palace. Chris said the house he found needed repairs. The guy assumed his girlfriend didn't use the second floor. The aristocrat said he would live there for a while. Adele asked her friend to stop dragging her into it. Laughing, the handsome man promised not to let the widow's man get the wrong idea. The Marchioness explained that this was not what was meant. The girl was afraid that the princess might see the wrong meaning in it. Chris assumed that she might have been attacked again. The Duke noticed that she always carried a knife with her. The guy understood that his friend did not feel safe. Adele realized that if her friend had not returned, her house would have burned to the ground. She couldn't understand how the hero managed to return so quickly. The girl realized that he was quite far away. The Marquise asked how he managed to get there. Adele was amazed that the hero realized that the Count would show up. The handsome man said that he heard everything perfectly. With hope in his eyes, the guy asked if his girlfriend would let him stay. Weiss reminded him that she had promised to fulfill any of his requests. Gritting her teeth, the widow said that this would only be until the house was repaired. Adele couldn't refuse when he smiled like that. The guy said that the time would come when he would leave even if she begged him to stay. The Marquise noticed that he had added sugar to the milk. Adele became immersed into warm memories. Mom always gave her warm milk with sugar during sleepless nights. The girl remembered how she had asked Chris about this as a child. The Marquise could not believe that he had actually remembered it. Adele offered her friend to eat apple pie with her. The guy refused this generosity. The handsome man reminded her that his girlfriend had made the pie for someone else. The Marquise understood that her friend would hardly believe this story. The girl assured that she often baked apple pies to invite him. Adele wanted to make the same as her mother cooked. The handsome man suddenly hovered over her. The guy reminded her that he had fed her from his hands. He said that now it was his friend's turn. The widow recalled that he had put a piece in her mouth. The girl said that they were no longer children. Adele handed him a piece of fragrant pastry and said that it was just this once. The handsome man suddenly grabbed her hand. He gently licked the crumbs from the graceful hand. The Count reported that the dessert was tastier than he had expected. Adele felt her heart jumping out of her chest. The widow reported that the milk was doing its job. She said that it was time for her to go to bed. The girl settled comfortably on the bed. The friend suggested sitting nearby until she fell asleep. Adele assured that she would quickly fall asleep. The Marquise couldn't wait for her friend to leave. The guy said he would move his things as soon as possible. The widow's heart was tormented by doubts. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hide the strange feelings that were arising inside. The guy gently kissed her cheek. Chris assured that the pie was the same as in the first time she treated him. The handsome man said that he was going to bed now. The Marquise watched him go. The girl hoped that everything would be fine from now on. The pervert was twitching desperately. There was a gag in Ethan's mouth. Tears were streaming from the Count's eyes. His face had acquired a bluish tint from the beating. Smiling, the handsome man said that you should have taken his warning more seriously. With a light and precise movement of the sword, the guy cut the gag. The pervert reminded him that he had previously promised to spare him. The hero ordered him to answer his questions more carefully. He warned that if he decided to lie, he would kill the prisoner with his sword. With a trembling voice, the pervert assured that he had not even planned to lie. The prisoner swore to tell only the truth. Looking at the sharp blade, Weiss asked why he was pestering the Marquise. Ethan said that the girl had rejected his proposal. Weiss asked whether he had confessed to the girl before the funeral was over. The Count assured that he had always loved the Marquise. The hero assumed that he had poisoned the Marquis. The guy, shaking with fear, began to shake his head. Ethan reported that the man had been poisoned by his own wife. Looking at the sharp blade, the handsome man reminded that there was no evidence. The prisoner explained that Adele was feeding her husband. The boy assured that the Marquis was feeble. Ethan explained that because of this, Lady Oswald took care of him. The pervert explained that it was a secret to preserve the family's honor. The guy said that Adele had to live in the basement. The Count assured that she was nicknamed the Basement Lady. Ethan said that the Marquis was a living dead man. He said that because of this, the Oswald family took a girl from an ordinary family. Chris asked if Earl Grills knew about this. The prisoner, shaking all over, assured that the man himself had suggested it. Adele's father needed money to develop his business. The guy remembered how his girlfriend promised to become a noblewoman and live in luxury. The handsome man assumed that the Count knew a lot about the Oswald family. Ethan explained that he was a distant relative on his mother's side. The guy grinned and said that he was lying anyway. The pervert assured that he had told everything he knew. The hero explained that if the Marquise had really poisoned her husband, he would not have proposed to her. Chris asked who really killed the Marquis. The prisoner started babbling. The handsome man waved his sword and warned that he wouldn't repeat it twice. The sharp blade was at the Count's neck in an instant. The pervert reported that Stone had done it. Before the Marquis's death, someone saw him arguing with his eldest son. Ethan assured that it was he who accused the Marquis of murder. The aristocrat assured that Lady Oswald had always been faithful to her husband. The Count realized that the guy had taken a place on the Council of Elders. Chris couldn't understand why his friend was keeping quiet about it. With a crazy smile, Ethan assured that this was all the information he knew. Weiss swung sharply. The sharp blade cut the rope without the slightest problem. The guy ordered the prisoner to leave. The pervert noticed that his opponent had humiliated him and risked turning his back. Ethan was sure that he would not have time to repel the sudden attack. The aristocrat quickly grabbed the chair, eager to regain his honor. Soon the furniture shattered into many small pieces. The pervert began to slowly retreat, begging for mercy. A scream was heard. The hero stood in the middle of the room, his muscular body covered in drops of scarlet liquid. The assistant handed the gentleman a cape. The Count ordered an investigation into the death of Marquis Oswald. Putting on a cape, the guy asked to move his things to Adele's house. The commander-in-chief looked at the gentleman with surprise. Zimmer warned that if something happens, there will be no way back. The guy reminded that the emperor insisted on marriage with the princess. The handsome man explained that this was an order from His Highness. Zimmer was amazed that the gentleman had specifically approached the Marquise. With a cold calm in his voice, Weiss assured that he hated traitors. It was difficult to notice the Count's emotions when it came to Adele. The widow jerked sharply, clutching her hand tightly to her chest. Drops of cold sweat were visible on the girl's face. Her heart was pounding wildly. The Marquise realized that it was just a bad dream. Adele stood up and slowly walked to the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of wine. The girl took a few sips of the intoxicating drink. The children's method with warm milk no longer worked for her. Adele rose from her chair and carefully pushed the drawer aside. The Marquise glanced at the blank document with the Emperor's signature. The girl took it when she left her husband's house. She untied the red string with a wave of her hand. Adele clutched the sheet tightly in her hands, trying to understand the meaning. Tanya burst into the mistress's room and asked her to wake up quickly. The Marquise asked what was happening so early in the morning. The girl said that there was no time to rub her eyes. She asked to look at the events that were happening outside the window. The workers worked hard to make the house safe. They hung bars, strengthened the fence. Zimmer grinned and asked where they should hang the chandelier. Two guys were carrying the luxurious lighting fixture. Adele clarified what they had done. The girl's voice was irritated. The Marquise was unhappy that he had broken into her house and was redoing the interior. The commander-in-chief explained to Weiss that he would stop at this place for a while. The guy was sure that permission was not needed. Adele reminded that they had not discussed the reconstruction of the house. The knight explained that the chief's comfort was important to him. Zimmer apologized for his recklessness. The girl was glad that he had reasoned sensibly. The guest asked if they could finish the remodeling of the second floor. Zimmer promised to return everything to how it was after leaving. The widow was a little taken aback. The girl allowed the knight to do whatever was necessary. Tanya realized that the guest was not so simple. The maid asked why Adele was against it. The girl was sure that this was a great chance. Renovate the entire house. The Marchioness explained that even the old house belonged to her. The widow did not like the changes in the place she cared for. The girl looked at the room with horror. Adele didn't like the wallpaper with flowers at all. Entering the house, Graf assumed that he was mistaken. The guy asked Adele where Zimmer was. The knight assured that he was only doing his duty. He wanted to ensure the commander's comfort. The subordinate, kneeling down, said he wanted to make the place more comfortable. The handsome man decided to reward Zimmer for his efforts. Adele noticed that her friend took hold of the sword hilt. She had no intention of watching bloodshed in her home. The girl suddenly stood between Chris and the knight. She said that it was her idea. The Marchioness was sure that the Count was rich enough to afford such a thing. The boy was struck by the disgusting floral wallpaper. The knight looked away and said that it was not so. Adele asked the sir to think carefully. The Marchioness pretended to ask for it. The girl was amazed that Zimmer was so stubborn. The friend asked why the Marquise defended the knight. Breaking into a scream, the widow said that any life is precious. The girl explained that Zimmer did it for the sake of the master. The handsome man was amazed that his girlfriend thought he was ready to draw his sword. Smiling, the knight explained that polishing the weapon was a punishment. The guy explained that their leader would never so easily stain his sword with blood. Adele ordered everyone to leave her house. The marquise asked them to tear off the tasteless wallpaper and leave the house. In the evening, the girl sat at the table. She carefully wrote out recipes for her signature desserts. Adele knew she should have started yesterday. The beggar was afraid she wouldn't make the delivery on time. The marquise realized that a sleepless night awaited her. First, she needed to prepare the dough. She realized with a rush that the flour was in the basement. Adele realized that she should have asked the maid to bring the ingredients from the cellar. The girl was sure that Tanya was exhausted. The lady did not dare to wake the worker at that moment. The marquise remembered that her friend would not return because of work in the palace. The friend wondered what the count was doing. She assumed that the handsome man was spending time in April's peace. The girl could not allow such depraved thoughts. Adele tried to pull herself together and go down to the basement. Suddenly the door swung open. Chris asked why she was still awake. The girl reminded that her friend was not planning to return that day. The handsome man took off his jacket and casually threw it on a chair. The count asked what Adele was doing at such a late hour. The widow's heart sank when she saw his hands. Smiling, the girl gently touched his hand. The marquise asked him to do this to her tonight. Adele explained that if you knead the dough with such strong hands, it will become much softer. The girl explained that the wound on her hand wasn't completely healed. She begged her friend to do it. The Marchioness suggested they try it together. Chris was embarrassed and asked her to stop talking like that. The girl was surprised because her friend told her that he wanted to bake with her. The handsome guy grabbed her hands and asked where to start. The Marchioness admitted that she was worried about how to carry all this upstairs. She decided to show the count how to make dough properly. Adele asked him to repeat her movement. The girl reminded him that her friend had seen her do it many times. The widow hoped that he would quickly learn how to cook. The marquise realized that she had forgotten to tie her hair. Adele asked a friend for a favor. She said that there was a tie in her apron pocket. The girl asked to braid her hair. The handsome guy specified what to do with her hair. The girlfriend reported that her hands were in flour. The girl asked Chris to tie it loosely. Adele assured him that it would be enough to keep her hair out of the dough. The marquise said that they would use the friend because of his generosity. The guy actively began to dig in the pocket of his apron. Weiss took the piece of fabric with disgust. The handsome man asked how long his girlfriend had used the tie. Adele admitted that she had used the item. About a decade. The count asked to throw it away immediately and buy a new one. The girl assured that the tie was still usable. She explained that the thing was valuable because it was worn out from use. The handsome man asked not to get attached to useless things. Adele reported that she spent a lot of time with the tie. The girl reported that she had many memories associated with it. The marquise admitted that the tie's dilapidated appearance made it valuable. Chris asked if it was about old acquaintances. The guy asked what was the reason for her departure a decade ago. The handsome man wrapped a piece of fabric around his finger and approached her. Adele felt his hot breath on her neck. The girl said that her friend was too close. The count loomed over her. Chris asked why she left him. The marquise recalled that she had always dreamed of becoming a noblewoman. Pomraknev's friend clarified what she was hiding. The guy assumed that the murder of the marquis was the work of Adele. The friend noticed that the handsome man's voice was filled with care and tenderness. The girl asked if Chris hated her. The marquise reminded him how she left him alone. With a heavy sigh, the guy admitted that some time ago he despised her. Looking down into the sky-blue eyes, the boy admitted that they were too young then. Chris asked to tell him the real reason. The count hoped that he would be able to understand his friend. Adele drooped and admitted that she did not kill her husband. The guy assumed that this was Stone's doing. The aristocrat explained that she knew he was going to do it. She said that she pretended not to know. The girl could not consider herself innocent. The count, breaking into a shout, asked why she had not told the truth. Chris was amazed that his friend had taken the blame on herself. He promised to help. Adele stopped him. The girl reminded him that she had not been punished in any way. The beggar woman assured him that it was all in the past. The friend asked why she was covering Stone. Horror flashed in her sky-blue eyes. The guy assumed that Adele had feelings for the guy. He was amazed that the girl had come to terms with the fact that she had been branded a killer. The marquise grabbed her friend by the cheeks and offered to scold him. The girl was amazed that the handsome man had thought of such stupid things. Adele said that she was disgusted to think about it. Smiling, the Marquise asked if the Count knew how he had mocked her. The girl hoped that he would never return from the kingdom of Orbis until the end of his days. Chris remembered how quickly the boy was sent to another kingdom. It seemed to him that Stone was running away. The guy assumed that it was done to frame Adele. A friend will check with the girl whether he should kill Stone Oswald. Smiling, the Marquise assured that everything was fine. She suggested ending the conversation about this and getting down to business. Bright rays of sun broke through the windows. Tanya got out of bed and stretched well. The girl thought about how many people she would serve breakfast for. She was upset that her friend's relationship with the Count was not working out. Tanya abruptly opened the kitchen door. She saw how Milady and the Count slept together. Adele and her friend slept sitting up. Zymer wished the girl a good morning. Tanya abruptly covered his mouth with her hand. The commander-in-chief asked what the girl was doing. Tanya whispered that the Count was sleeping in the kitchen. The girl assumed that the old friends had stayed in the kitchen for too long and fallen asleep. The guest asked if the gentleman was wearing any clothes. Chris realized that his excellent hearing was causing trouble. The gentleman asked if the guy had found the document. Zimmer explained that he had used the renovation as an excuse to search the entire house except the bedroom. The commander-in-chief admitted that he had not seen any documents. The knight assured that this time he would ask the servants to search the entire house. The Count assured that there was no need to rush. Zimmer asked whether the gentleman and the lady had really made the dough at night. The guy explained that in winter desires usually flare up. Breaking into a scream, Weiss ordered to shut his mouth. Zimmer remembered the gentleman saying that Adele's scent was hard to resist. He couldn't believe that they had actually been making dough all night. The gentleman called out to Zimmer. The knight was burning with shame from his thoughts. The Count warned that next time he would be digging his own grave. The commander-in-chief admitted that he admired the master's self-control. The guy was sure that even the eunuch would have burst into tears from the restraint shown. The gentleman struck furiously with his sword. He reminded him that he had ordered Zimmer to shut up. The assistant moved away in horror, looking at the cut chair. In a trembling voice, the guy promised to sit quietly in the future. The maid couldn't believe that the Count, who emitted a frightening aura, spent the whole night preparing the dough. Adele carefully spread cream on freshly baked desserts. The Marquise could not believe that her friend was actually doing this. The girl admitted that she had to make a scene. Her friend couldn't believe that the lady had been kneading dough with the handsome guy all night. Embarrassed, Adele asked what else she could do in the kitchen. The stress caused her to squeeze the pastry bag too tightly. With trembling hands, the Marquise tried to remove the pastry bag. Adele noticed that it had become a bit hot in the kitchen. She ordered the window to be opened. The girl heard Chris speak so tenderly for the first time in her life. The aristocrat thought it was a sweet dream. The handsome man promised Adele that she would no longer have to use a knife for self-defense. The guy kissed her tenderly and wished her sweet dreams. The Marquise understood that these were just her dreams. Her heart began to pound wildly in her chest as if trying to escape. Adele bumped into her friend and was very confused. She reminded him that he had promised to leave for a while. Seeing 3 strangers in her house, the girl with horror in her eyes asked who all these people were. The Count introduced the butler. The friend reminded that Weiss had promised to stay with her for a short while. It seemed to her that the handsome man had no intention of leaving. Chris promised to take the servants with him. The guy explained that the workers would come from a neighboring estate. The aristocrat promised to take the workers with him. The Count explained that he did not like to feel discomfort. The guy reminded that very soon there would be a tea party with the princess. Adele said that it was so. The Marchioness clarified why her friend asked about it. The events are moved forward a few days. The friends were delighted with Adele's appearance. The girl admitted that she felt awkward. Mia assured that the chief designer of the Sinel house was a professional. The Baroness realized why the designer was so popular in high society. A friend told me that this dress was almost impossible to order. Mia couldn't understand how the Count managed to do it. Adele knew that the dress cost a fortune. The Baroness suggested doing her makeup. The girl said that this time she would look better without makeup. The friend told Mia that it would be bad if she looked more beautiful than the princess. The maid said that she had packed desserts for the palace. Straightening her shoulders, the girl said that it was time for her to go. The Baroness wished her friend a good time. The butler bowed and said that the carriage was already waiting at the entrance. Adele could not get used to the butler. The man held out the box. He asked to open this gift on the way to the palace. The worker said that rainy weather was expected during the day. The butler asked her not to forget to take an umbrella. The girl thanked Henry. Tanya excitedly asked Milady to open the box. The maid was delighted by the beauty of the ribbon. The girl assumed that this gift was very expensive. Adele assumed that her previous hair tie had irritated her friend. The Marquise asked Tanya to braid a ribbon in her hair. The girl hoped that her first tea party with April would be simple. She couldn't understand why the smile never left her face. Adele thought that this day would be wonderful. The cup with the red drink fell and shattered into pieces. The girl looked calmly at the small wound on her finger. Scarlet drops slowly flowed down her hand. Soon Adele arrived at the Imperial Palace. The building was large. The facade was delicate milky colors and the roof merged with the sky. Smiling, the princess greeted the guest. Adele put her hand on her chest. The girl said that it was a great honor for her. The noble ladies noticed that the Marquise was wearing a dress from the House of Sinel. The girls were amazed to see such an elegant thing. April said that she invited Miss Hans so that the girl would not feel superfluous. The widow thanked her for such an attentive attitude. Sira burst into tears and thanked Her Highness for the invitation. The lady shared that unpleasant rumors were ruining her relationship with her mother. The girl said that she had valued Adele very much since she joined their family. The princess was amazed by the lady's kindness. Sira explained that because of this, she was very grateful to Her Highness for organizing this meeting. The Marquise said that she had brought some desserts for tea. April admitted that she had heard a lot about desserts. Her Highness thanked her guest. The stepdaughter looked at the widow with disdain. The girl understood that her rival's peace would not last long. The lady did not understand how it was possible to eat so many beautiful cookies. Smiling, the stepdaughter suggested inviting Count Weiss. April thought it was a great idea. Her Highness called the servant. The girl asked him to bring her fiancé. The worker bowed and asked for forgiveness. He said that the count was in an audience with the emperor. The widow realized that she had been invited because of Chris. Adele realized that her stepdaughter would not have come to tea without a reason. Madame began a conversation with the exile. Hans allegedly accidentally spilled the burgundy drink on her luxurious dress. The girl apologized, explaining that her hand shook. The lady was sure that such expensive silk would be stained. The princess anxiously asked her guest if she had burned herself. Adele was sure that her rival had deliberately spilled the tea. The Marquise watched her stepdaughter closely. The girl realized that Sira intended to ruin the princess's dessert. The widow realized what the consequences could be. Adele did not want rumors to spread that she intended to poison the princess. Sira assured that her mother was a generous person. The lady asked her relative not to worry about it. The stress caused the Marquise to squeeze her hand too tightly. The cup shattered into many small pieces. The burgundy drink spilled onto the bright tablecloth. Adele asked everyone present for forgiveness. She assured that she had cut her hand trying to catch a falling cup. The princess asked Madame if she was seriously hurt. April promised to call a doctor immediately. The guest assured that it was nothing. The girl explained that she could bandage the small scratch with a handkerchief. The Marchioness reported that her feet were wet. Smiling, she asked her stepdaughter if she could take off her shoes. Adele explained that her feet were wet and her hand was injured. The girl explained that it would be very helpful if Sira helped her mother. The Marchioness could not allow the lady to get away so easily. The noblewoman sat down next to her stepmother in disgust. She tried her best not to show her true emotions. Adele thanked her stepdaughter for her help. The princess was delighted with their wonderful relationship. The guest told her that she massaged her feet from time to time. The Marquise explained that her stepdaughter's long fingers gave her incredible lightness. Adele suggested that her stepdaughter massage the princess's feet. The lady forced a smile on her face and said that it would be disrespectful to the princess. The girl was sure that she would not allow anyone to touch your feet. April asked not to worry about it. Her Highness admitted that she was very curious about Mrs. Skills. The aristocrats grinned, assuring him that this was an excellent opportunity to demonstrate their skills. April noticed that the guest's fingers were indeed long and beautiful. The girl noticed how her relative's face turned pale. The lady asked Hans if everything was okay. Sira was sure that the escort was really not very well. The girl asked Her Highness, could she take her for a walk? Madame claimed that she was fine. Sira assured that there was no need to be embarrassed about it. The girl said that this could happen to anyone. Adele swapped the plates while her stepdaughter massaged the princess's feet. The Marquise assumed that they had slipped laxatives into the desserts. The aristocrats began to discuss Madame Hans's ignoble origins. The girl noticed how easy it is to lose face in society. Adele realized that it is worth keeping away from high society. Valentine stood proudly in his luxurious robes. The man would never take the throne without the approval of the Council of Elders. The previous emperor died during a war with a neighboring country, and he, not approved by the Council of 5 Elders, took the imperial throne. The son was too inexperienced to take control of the situation. The younger brother of the deceased became the emperor. Valentine subjugated small neighboring towns. He was popular even among ordinary people. Count Weiss had a hand in every victory. Valentine announced that the aristocrat would soon take office. The man admitted that he felt truly confident. The handsome man assumed that His Highness was flattering him. The emperor asked when Weiss would marry April. The man suggested that he propose during the ceremony. Valentine heard that the count visited the marquise's residence. He assumed that he wanted to take the document, and asked the guy not to forget about the situation. The man asked him not to do anything that could upset April. The handsome man explained that he never promised the princess any future. With hidden aggression, Valentine reminded her that the count would soon become his son-in-law. The man explained that the aristocrat should at least pretend to love the princess. The emperor assured that he was not concerned about his friend's relationship with the marquise. The gentleman said that it would be problematic if April sensed something was wrong. Weiss calmly assured that troubles happen to anyone. The son of the empire muttered that he would give the guy another month. The man explained that during this time he was obliged to find the documents and leave the marquise's house. The aristocrat warned that he would tell Adele about the count's true nature. The guy suggested that it was worth informing April about his true nature. The handsome man was sure that his future wife would one day find out who he was. Weiss explained that the fragile girl would have to spend every night with him in fear. The subordinate reminded him that he was a beast with no limits in his desires. The emperor abruptly grabbed the glass from the table. The man clearly threw the object at his subordinate. The handsome man calmly caught the crystal glass. The count squeezed the object with a trembling hand. Many small fragments flew around the room. Drops of blood slowly flowed from his clenched hand. Weiss reported that everything had already been decided. The guy reminded thanks to whom the Grand Duke Valentine became emperor. Weiss turned around and bid the lord good night. The man was angry at himself for allowing Weiss to grow so strong. The emperor noticed that cold sky-blue eyes were looking down at him. Valentine couldn't leave it that easy. The ruler assumed that Adele was the beast's weak point. The girl greeted Her Highness. The empress was a low-ranking knight who fought side by side with the emperor. Valentine broke tradition by taking a woman as his wife. The lady was kneeling and tears were flowing from her eyes. The snow-white dress was covered with scarlet drops. The empress clutched the bloody whip tightly in her hands. The woman assumed that Lady Oswald's situation had improved. The aristocrat reported that usually the girl began to look better when she had a worthy man. Adele looked down. The girl said she didn't understand what the empress meant. The woman said she despised, more than anything else in the world, immoral people. The empress hated vulgar dolls who relied on their pretty faces. The aristocrat reported that the lady in the torn dress was His Highness's mistress. The woman said she wanted to teach the lady a lesson by cutting off her wrist. The mistress writhed in the knight's hands and begged for mercy. The empress announced that her daughter would soon marry Count Weiss. The woman propped up the girl's face with a bloody whip. She asked him not to behave so recklessly. Adele hissed that there was no such relationship between her and Chris. The marquise was shocked that she did not trust her future son-in-law. The girl said that her friend was not one of those who would look away from the woman of his heart. The empress furiously ordered him to shut up. The aristocrat said that she could not tolerate words that disgraced the honor of her friend. The empress swung her whip furiously. The girl meekly closed her eyes, preparing for the blow. The handsome man grabbed the object with his bloody hand. Weiss asked Her Highness what was happening. The woman assured that she and the marquise had spoken pleasantly. She assured that there was no reason to worry. The boy irritably noted that this did not look like a small talk. The empress assumed that he was conducting an interrogation. The handsome man grinned and said that he was taking the marquise with him. Her Highness advised the guy to be more careful. The woman said that even a hero could fall from just one cup of tea. The guy said that he sincerely appreciated the care of the aristocrats. The count said goodbye with a grin. The girl asked her friend to stop. She gently touched his wounded hand. The Marchioness asked where the palace hospital was. Adele assumed that the count had injured himself before his arrival. The girl noticed that the wound on his arm was too deep for a whip. The handsome man assured that he was just practicing with a sword. The marquise asked with irritation why he had interfered. The girl said that the conversation concerned only her and her highness. The hero assured that if he had not interceded, his friend would have received similar wounds. The marquise assured that she would have managed to dodge. The guy assumed that she hinted that his sacrifice was in vain. Adele thanked the hero and asked him not to do it again. The marquise did not want Chris to suffer because of her. She began to carefully bandage his wounds. The guy noticed a painfully familiar handkerchief. The handsome man assumed that his girlfriend had been carrying the item with her all this time. The embarrassed widow assured him that she was going to return it. The handsome man reminded her that she could have given the thing back at home. Adele said that she had a lot of things to do. The count asked why she was so angry. The guy noticed that she blushed and raised her voice. The aristocrat's body was shaking. The marquise dug her heel into his foot. The guy indignantly asked what she was doing. The widow warned that she would not tolerate it. A friend asked why she had not shown her character in front of the empress. Adele explained that it was her first meeting with the empress. The girl promised that this would never happen again. The marquise said that on that day she had disciplined Sira. The widow assumed that Tanya was already tired of waiting for her. The guy volunteered to accompany her. Adele recommended that he treat his hand. She reminded him that she and her friend would see each other at home. The marquise realized that this phrase had already become a habit. The girl realized that Chris would soon leave. She understood perfectly well that it was not worth getting closer. A friend asked Adele what was happening to her. The marquise said that everything was fine and it was time for her to go. Smiling, the handsome man asked whether his girlfriend would treat his hand when she returned home. The girl asked to change her facial expression. She explained that people could misunderstand their relationship. The handsome man gently approached and kissed her on the forehead. The guy said that it was worth doing at least this little thing to restore justice. Memories whirled around in Adele's head. The girl blamed herself. The marquise's heart was jumping out of her chest. Her breath suddenly caught. The widow knew she had to wish her friend happiness with April. She longed with all her heart to break off his engagement. Tanya turned to Milady. The girl shuddered. The maid reported that she had searched everywhere. The maid noticed that the mistress's hair was disheveled. The friend asked where Ribbon had disappeared to. The widow realized that Lenta had disappeared after meeting with Chris. The aristocrat asked her to wait for her outside. The girl quickly walked towards the imperial palace. Adele promised to find the valuable thing in the blink of an eye. The wife reported that Valentine had become very relaxed. The woman was furious that he wanted to leave the count and the marquise alone. The emperor reminded them that they were related to each other. The woman noticed the atmosphere that reigned between the two. The wife suggested that the scoundrel could have charmed their son-in-law. The man said that he asked the earl to get closer to Lady Oswald. He explained that Weiss had come to that house to find a document left by the late marquis. The man asked to pretend that his wife knew nothing. The emperor said that after the assistant found the document, they would arrange a luxurious engagement. Adele was clutching the wet ribbon tightly in her hands. Her friend asked the marquise to dry her hair. The girl carefully warned her that she could get sick. Tanya noticed that after the lady found the tape, she returned very upset. The horse reared. The carriage jerked sharply. The coachman asked for forgiveness. The man explained that someone had fallen to the ground in front of the crew. The worker assured that the child had jumped under the wheels. Adele asked if there was a hospital nearby. She asked to quickly bring the baby to the carriage. Tanya warned that by the time they arrived it might be closed. The Baron extended his hand to the marquise. Mark reported that everything went without serious injuries. He assured that after the stitches the baby would be completely fine. The widow anxiously asked why the boy was unconscious. The boy told his beloved that it was due to malnutrition. The doctor asked if Adele knew the boy. The Marchioness admitted that he looked familiar. The guy assured that the baby's father was a notorious drunkard. The aristocrat reported seeing townspeople trying to stop the man. The drunkard beat the boy and forced him to beg for food. The girl reassured herself that the baby had been beaten by his father again. The marquise asked Tanya to return and find the child's father. She said that the baby would stay in this house for a while. The girl promised to do everything possible to have the man thrown into prison. The lady asked if there was anything else she could do. A small boy appeared hesitantly from behind the door and turned to his father. Adele turned her attention to the Baron's son. The girl greeted Jade. The little boy hid uncertainly behind the door. Mark asked his son to be polite and greet the Marchioness. The girl assumed that she had appeared in this house very unexpectedly. The boy remembered that the guest had baked some delicious cookies. Smiling, the marquise assured that she could also bake delicious bread. Jade asked her father if the lady could cook something tasty for them. The guy said that it was very disrespectful to their guest. The kid said that the food his father cooked was not tasty. The embarrassed Baron said that the maid had quit a few days ago. The guest suggested that this was the reason the Baron wore an apron. The guy said that he had completely forgotten about it. Adele reported that the doctor looked very well in this outfit. Mark asked not to make fun of him. The widow said she wasn't joking at all. She promised to take care of the food. The embarrassed Baron assured that there was no need for that. The girl reminded him that he had helped her. The widow said that this could be considered gratitude. Entering the kitchen, Adele felt like there was a food fight going on. The boy carefully handed the guest clothes. The Marchioness asked why this was necessary. Jade explained that her clothes were damp and she could get sick. The girl gently stroked the baby's head. Anxiety had been tormenting Adele's heart since she left the palace. She was glad she hadn't gotten home right away. The Baron looked at the treat with admiration. The smell of freshly prepared food filled the kitchen. The guy couldn't believe that Adele had cooked this from what he had at home. The Marquise brought a few more dishes. The girl recommended eating it while it was still warm. Mark couldn't take his eyes off his beloved. The guy was amazed by the outfit the guest was wearing. The son proudly said that he gave it to Adele himself. The boy explained that you can't wear something wet because you can easily get sick. The girl assumed that the dress belonged to the late Baroness. Adele asked for forgiveness. She promised to go and change immediately. Smiling, the Baron assured that his son had done everything right. The aristocrat suggested that they start eating as soon as possible. The guy said it was hard to see beautiful food and not enjoy it. The guy wished everyone a bon appetit. The guest asked about the boy's condition. Mark promised to give him some soup when he woke up. The guy entered the house. Weiss asked where Adele was. The aristocrat couldn't believe that she still hadn't returned. The butler reported that the Marchioness was at Baron Carlson's estate. The handsome man asked with irritation what she was doing there. Tanya reported that the mistress had taken the wounded child there. The maid explained that the Marchioness would stay there until the boy got better. The guy was amazed that his friend took the injured child to the vet. The aristocrat reminded Henry that a butler's duty was to protect his masters and their reputation. The man promised to return Madame immediately. The count said that he would go for her himself. He asked to show the way. Mark admitted that his beloved tried very hard. The guy said that Jade had just fallen asleep. The Baron thanked her for playing with the baby. He assumed that the boy really liked the girl. Mark said that it was the first time his son had offered this dress to anyone. The widow assumed that the boy missed his mother very much. The girl admitted that she also had a fun time thanks to Jade. Adele was glad that she could forget about Chris for a while. The guest said that it was time for her to go home. She promised to return the dress a little later. The Baron asked if the girl would mind a glass of wine. He thought it would not be unnecessary. The aristocrat realized that if she had to go home, she would inevitably run into Chris. Adele agreed to have one glass. She said it sounded like an excellent idea.